All right, peace and blessings, everybody. It's your brother Sorry back with yet another one. Peace to the ancestors, as always. Love y'all, miss y'all, appreciate everything y'all left for us to kind of explore and build upon. Um, Peace to the true and living, man. Who is the true and living? If you've been following all of these plethora of discourses. Check the various playlists we've been kind of putting down over the last few months and everything like that. I think you might enjoy what you find. Um, Kind of trying to cite it a little bit well. There are three sections of this material: self to self, self to others, and others to self. The self to self stuff is more of the stuff that's kind of related to the experiential directly, talking about symbols, patterns, and principles. When we get into self to others, that's more me filtering a martial art through the experiential. So you're gonna see martial arts axioms and all kind of things applied to the material. Um, when you get into others to self, this portion that we're in right now, it's going to be a little bit more science heavy. So it's for all my non-believers. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a little bit more science heavy. It's going to be a few more thought experiments involved. We kind of expanded some of this stuff out into a different playlist. So we're going to get y'all latest issues either illustrated. You know what I mean? So honestly, this is probably going to be one of those episodes. We're going to do kind of like a case study on ancient Egypt, right? So we're going to do a bit of a case study on ancient Egypt, the harmonious machine, ancient Egyptian societal coherence through the bioetheric feedback loop and direct current spirituality, right? So we're still kind of running with this whole extended thought experiment that the human soul is electrical, a la Pascal Beverly Randolph. He's the first person in modern times to come up with that. We're filtering it through Nikola Tesla's physics. You see what I'm saying? Tesla was not alive at the time of Randolph, so it's kind of something that wasn't done in its organic timing. So we're filtering that through Tesla's physics. We're running with the idea that the body is electrical. We got videos on the whole human biofield and everything like that. Robert Becker's work talking about how cells are semiconductors and proteins are semiconductors, the whole nine like that. So we kind of fleshed all that out through numerous videos week after week. So I'm pretty sure y'all familiar with that at this point. Um, and we've been dealing with in some of our videos, geobiology, Ernest Hartman stuff, he was talking about how different places on the planet or whatever have different energies that may or may not um, be beneficial to different individuals based on their individual orientation. So we've been talking about feng shui and vastu shastra, how the physical buildings that we exist in function as batteries or for the incoming flow of energy, or they can potentially, if they're disorganized, they can potentially take energy away from us. We talked about, like, I know Dan Winters talks about metal buildings and things of that nature. So we kind of got into that whole gambit on an energetic level. We're going to kind of get into right now we're going to kind of get into how the bioetheric feedback loop applies on a societal level. You see what I'm saying? Because we talked about individual, let's say individual blueprints or individual souls or what have you. But what does that look like on a collective level as far as a society? And what would that look like? Let's say, like, if they consciously understood that this is kind of how nature works, how would they apply that to their civilization? How would they live in accordance to that? Now, just kind of prefacing this, I know when we study ancient Egypt, Egypt went through various different phases, various foreign rulers. Egypt was not a utopia, you see what I'm saying, throughout its entire duration. However, we're just examining the structure of it, what their intentions were for the structure of it. At best case scenario, we're going to go through, we're going to view it through, because, I'm going to kind of use the AI on some of this, but we're going to view it through You know, when you use the AI, it's only as good as the information that you input in it. So if I didn't do the research beforehand, preemptively, we wouldn't be able to have these robust conversations that we've been having. So you know, when we're talking about ancient Egypt, we're going to filter it through, you know, Gerald Massey, of course. We're going to filter it through R.A. Schwaller de Lubicz. R.A. Schwaller de Lubicz is a precursor to John Anthony West. I think one of the teachers of John Anthony West, Israel Regardie, you know what I'm saying, individuals of that caliber. And we're also going to filter it through the perspective of Rosemary Clark. So these people I'm filtering, you know, Kemet through. You know, they view Kemet from a different perspective. R.A. Schwaller de Lubicz, he studied the Temple of Luxor for like 20 years and everything like that. The Temple of Man is the Temple of Man. Herbach, I think Herbach was written by his daughter Isha Schwaller de Lubicz, but the Temple of Man, the Temple in Man numbers. He has several volumes, bodies of work and stuff like that. Rosemary Clark, Sacred Tradition in Ancient Egypt, Secret Tradition in Ancient Egypt, and Sacred Tradition in Ancient Egypt. Those are her two large volume works or whatever. So a lot of material these particular individuals kind of come with. So we're going to kind of, you know, through that lens of Kemet. You see what I'm saying? Because there's another lens of Kemet that you look at that they try to kind of suppress, because we know Egyptology they don't have Americaology. They have Egyptology. So I think at one time, Phil Valentine, somebody said that the purpose of them having Egyptology is to be able to filter in what comes out of that particular location informationally. So that's another thing or whatever. So when you view Kemet, you have to view it through the lens of particular people who embody the actual thought process of the people. You don't want somebody, the indigenous people, saying we've been here for 3,000 years, and then somebody coming up here saying, man, I've been here for a month, 6 months. You know what I'm saying? You don't want that type of discrepancy in your information. So that's my in video rant for the day. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate it. The examination of ancient Egyptian societal structure, as detailed by R.A. Schwaller de Lubicz, Gerald Massey, and Rosemary Clark, depart significantly from conventional archaeology. Yes, we know. It posits Kemet not merely as a historical civilization, but as a conscious metaphysical project, right? Okay, so this paints a different picture of Egypt. Now, some of the people who kind of study stuff like this, anyway, I'm preaching to the choir, but y'all just humor me in this, because we're gonna kind of get into some of the bioetheric feedback loop information. And if you're liking what you've been hearing, man, like and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? We get into this. A living system engineered to reflect cosmic laws. So they were conscious of this feedback loop that I'm talking about. So within this symbolist framework, the physical world is understood as being subordinate to and inherently reflective of the spiritual dimension, establishing the necessary conditions for a systematic feedback loop, right? So Egypt on earth was a reflection of the cosmos. You see what I'm saying? Of heaven. So it was, you know, viewed to be like heaven on earth. That's, you know, a portion of this reflective thing that we're talking about. So they were well aware of this nature of the cosmos. They dealt with their whole thing. We did a whole nother video on Ma'at as pressure mediation and everything like that. So this was you know, the principle of, let's say, balance. It permeated their society from a moral perspective all the way down into the sciences or what have you. So yeah, so let's get into this. Schwaller de Lubicz and the anthropocosmic template. Schwaller de Lubicz seminal analysis of the Temple of Luxor establishes the concept of anthropocosmic architecture. His extensive study concluded that the design of the temple mirrored the proportions of the human form, right? He called the book The Temple in Man, the Temple of Man, specifically the proportional relationship between the human skull and the spine, reflecting the sanctuary and the outer courts respectively. This is not interpreted as an artistic choice. This is not interpreted as an artistic choice. They did this intentionally. The outer courts and the sanctuary mimic the skull and the spine of the individual. Okay. Let's see, but a profound statement on the inherent connection between humanity and the cosmos. The application of the golden ratio, a universal constant found across nature throughout the temple's architecture, underscores cosmic order and the interconnectedness of all phenomena. So basically what he's doing, just kind of laying the foundation. Um, what he's saying is that basically he understood, he observed in his research and his observation of the Temple of Luxor, he observed how they encoded cosmic geometry within the temple itself. You see what I'm saying? And cosmic symmetry within the temple itself. This architectural reflection provides a crucial principle for understanding the societal mechanism. If the sacred structure embodies the human form and the human body is inherently a complex biological feedback system, right? Then the architectural structure, societal structure, by analogy, must function as a colossal, formalized cybernetic system of metaphysical feedback and regulation. So, like how we always say, nature is self-similar across scale. So they understood that same thing as well. They operated from a perspective that everything kind of mirrors each other and everything like that. Their society on Earth was a mirror of um, equilibrium and order within the heavens and everything like that. And if the things that they did corresponded with what was going on in heaven or whatever case may be, that would have an orderly society. Thus, this is why they aligned pyramids and certain structure with certain stars and stuff like that. They were mimicking heavenly order in synchronicity. So let's see here. So they were familiar with this feedback loop that we're talking about, so much so that they ordered their society in a way where it reflected that, or whatever the case may be, thus making their society run more like a machine, is what it's saying. So let's see. If reality is consciousness, it possesses the intrinsic ability to react, regulate, and communicate information. So if reality is consciousness, it possesses the intrinsic ability to react, regulate, and communicate information. All right. The precise geometric application of the golden ratio serves as the intrinsic geometric constant, ensuring the stability and resonant frequency of this societal system. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, the golden ratio that's involved in everything. This tuning fork right here, so golden ratio, frequency and everything like that. So, so that's a thing. Um, that frequency, some people use it to bring things back to their original state or closer in line to their original blueprint or whatever, like a universal frequency that does that, or whatever case may be. That's how some people use it. Okay, the Gerald Massey and the Societal Roots of Myth. Gerald Massey's work focuses on positioning ancient Egypt, or Kemet, as the ultimate progenitor of Western philosophical and religious thought. Because remember, when we talked about your Greek philosophers and stuff like that, what they call the natural philosophers and everything like that, a lot of them scoured the ancient world or whatever and studied all over the ancient world. You hear stories about various natural philosophers, Solon and all of them. I forget what they call it, the seven sages in Greece or whatever case may be, studying all over the ancient world, studying from various different sages of Babylon and Egypt and everything like that, and gaining certain levels of insight because they were unfamiliar with the history of the ancient world or the geography of the location that they actually existed in. Yeah. So let's see, arguing that Kemite thinking was a direct source code for later religious traditions like Judaism, Christianity. And yeah, we're gonna get into that as well in future videos. We're gonna, we kind of touched on that thing with Saturn, but we're gonna kind of get into that. We're gonna kind of get into how Judaism um, um, is heavily entrenched in the in a Saturnian tradition. Islam is heavily entrenched in the tradition, and as well as Christianity, is heavily entrenched in the Saturnian tradition. I'm going to get into that on other videos. Stay tuned. Okay, so, and that's not to throw dirt on anybody's religion. We just, doing thought experiments, and saying providing contrast in certain conversations. So moving right along. So critically, Massey viewed Egyptian myth not as fanciful tales. So like I've said before on this channel, um, a lot of what we view as mythology, it's not really mythology. It's it wasn't mythology as in how we view it, like fables or something. It was these people's actual history, how they viewed it. Massey viewed Egyptian myths not as fanciful tales, but as the register of the earliest scientific observation, the register of the earliest scientific observation, and the mirror of prehistoric sociology. So he was saying that this wasn't the myths and stuff like that wasn't fables, how we see them or whatever. That was actually their actual history. Um, this perspective implies that the deities, narratives, and rituals were codified operational guides for maintaining systematic and societal harmony, most notably embodied by Ma'at. Now, remember, we just did a video on Ma'at and Ma'at as pressure mediation. And remember how we talked about pressure mediation applies to everything almost, from the resource availability, people living and dying, on into planes coming off the ground. So pressure mediation is a very diverse thing, and it ties into the same idea of balance in the system that Ma'at ties into. Massey's interpretation of texts like the Book of the Dead further reinforced this operational view. He saw these ancient writings as sophisticated, detailed guides detailing the procedures necessary for achieving spiritual transformation, the transition into the opposite state, the Gnostic thread, which flourished in Egypt, and Ak would be like ether or the soul, however. The Gnostic thread, which flourished in Egypt and focused on the necessity of knowing, the path to the afterlife, connected directly to the need to clear informational feedback and precise adherence to established spiritual protocols. If the Commission society, as articulated by Schwaller de Lubicz, is a machine, if the Commission society is a machine, right, a cosmic level machine that corresponds with the cosmos and everything like that, because this just like in the Vedic tradition or whatever, if you explore the Vedic tradition, it's not much that they got going on that does not involve astrology. Everything involves astrology, from the rituals to certain initiations. Pretty much everything has some sort of astrological um, election associated with it. So okay, so if Egypt is a machine designed to run smoothly according to cosmic rules, then the myths and religious texts detailed by Massey are the system documentation explicitly detailing the rituals and ethnic procedures necessary to maintain Ma'at. Failure to follow this documentation, thereby descending into Isfat, is guaranteed to result in systematic malfunction and eventual collapse. All right, so that was kind of how they viewed the society. If they maintain or if they maintain a certain level of order in their society or whatever case may be, and that mirrored the cosmic order or whatever case may be, their society would not descend into Isfat. Okay, so, or disorder. Similar thing how we've been talking about entropy. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so Rosemary Clark's sacred tradition and spiritual application. Rosemary Clark emphasizes the pervasive nature of Commission belief, noting that spirituality was not compartmentalized. Was not compartmentalized. You go to church on Sunday and then you beat your wife on Monday type deal. It wasn't really compartmentalized, but was an integral part of life. It was integrated in everything that they did. You see what I'm saying? This practical integration meant that Commission wisdom was operational. It was operational, it was functional, meant to be applied to guide personal evolution, right? Temples, therefore, know thyself. You feel me? Temples, therefore, serve not just as places of worship, but as representations of the cosmos, right? The temples themselves were representations of the cosmos and laboratories for spiritual development. This highlights the collective enforced spiritual project. Individual ethical and spiritual alignment was a necessary contribution to overall coherence. Let's say that again. Individual ethical spiritual alignment was a necessary contribution to the overall coherence of the state. So just like how I said on previous videos or whatever, the condition, the contributions of the individual matter. You see what I'm saying? Or they count um, in the grander scheme of things toward the whole, or whatever. How that person feels, how that how that person handles situations and everything like that. Let me see here. Ensuring the system's smooth functionality. So basically, a person gaining a level of spiritual nourishment as an individual or what have you contributes to the spiritual stability of the whole society and everything like that. So that's another thing. Okay, so the reflection principle and the Ma'atic mirror, right? The structure of ancient Egyptian society was engineered around the reflection principle, right? As we said a little bit before, their society on Earth mirrored the stellar heavens and everything like that, the order, the cosmic order and everything like that. Okay, the structure of ancient Egyptian society was engineered around the reflection principle, the concept that the observed physical order, the macrocosm of the state, must perfectly align with the underlying metaphysical idea, the spiritual microcosm. This alignment was governed by the algorithm of Ma'at, right? Balance. Okay, so the foundational operating system. So it's viewing my somewhat as an operating system. So let's kind of get into this. See what he's saying. My is the profound principle, and the God is personified truth, justice, balance, harmony, and cosmic order. Right. This concept was not merely a religious tenet, but the foundation of civilization itself, regulating everything from heavenly movements and seasonal cycles to honesty in social interactions. So, just to kind of, just as a sidebar, as we saw in the previous video, we kind of did the whole thing, compared the principle of Ma'at to pressure mediation or whatever. And even as we get into some of this material, the self-to-self material, when we talk about, let's say when you're in situations where particular principles are being tested or what have you, there is a proper and improper response to that or whatever. And we're talking about a causal connections. We're talking about thematic situations. You might be in 10 different situations that may have 10 different set of particulars, but thematically they may be the same thing, the same aspect of your personality or character may be tested and everything like that. The proper response would be to um, the proper response would result in some form of balance. Let's say like the situation having a balanced outcome, thus yielding you a favorable situation. To respond improperly would be to do too much or not enough, and that would yield an unfavorable response. So just using that as an example in everyday situations in life and everything like that, my is operating from a that principle is operating from a cosmic macro scale on a metaphysical level all the way down, acausally, all the way down to the level of pressure mediation and everything like that. That concept is a very pervasive concept or whatever. As we can see, it's kind of like why we fleshed all that out. So let's see. My is ideological opposite is Isfat, right? All right, representing injustice, chaos, and violence. Okay, so that's basically what we've been calling entropy or what have you. The ultimate verification of individual adherence to Ma'at was performed in the Hall of Judgment, where the heart, ebb, or individual consciousness of the deceased was weighed against Ma'at's feather, right? If the heart, and keep in mind, the mind is operating in archetypes. You see what I'm saying? In grosser themes or whatever. So this is a lot of this is symbolic. If the heart was burdened by falsehood, it was annihilated by Amit, a fate worse than death, the complete erasure of the soul, the post-mortem cemetery ceremony represents the definitive, non-negotiable feedback mechanism defining the success or failure of the individual's spiritual project. Okay, so he's saying that the judgment seat, the judgment of the heart, the weighing of the feather against the heart, or whatever the case may be. He's saying metaphorically, that's an aspect of the feedback loop. You see what I'm saying? Whether you performed, um, like how we said before in previous videos, whether you had good karma or not, whether you had a favorable response, as we've been saying. Vertical reflection, macrocosm to microcosm, the societal hierarchy centralized around the Fertile Nile Valley was designed to function as a well-oiled machine. The stratified structure was explicitly organized to maintain the cosmic reflection. And keep in mind, um, like how we said in Gerald Massey's work, it's various phases that Egypt goes through. We're not really detailing any specific phase, but we're just talking about in general kind of how the nature that their society was ordered in. You may have different deities that emerge over time, or different deities rise to prominence, others fall out of prominence in certain eras of time or what have you. But overall, the way that their temples are set up, the way that their overall society is set up, my from beginning to end, that's kind of like a constant, or the principle of order, maintaining this order and mirroring the cosmos, regardless of what era that they enter into. This is kind of a constant thing. So that's kind of like why we kind of dealing with it, how we're dealing with it. Okay, vertical reflection, like I was saying, macrocosm, microcosm. Let's see here. The pharaoh, seen as a living god and extension of Ma'at, was the vital link maintaining this vertical coherence. The pharaoh was tasked with guiding the entire nation to uphold Ma'at's laws. Failure to satisfy the goddess could lead to national chaos or whatever. Okay, the symbolist view provides the mechanism for this reflection. Esoteric theory holds that etheric dimension is the true principle, that the etheric dimension is the true principle, and the dense physical world is merely its shadow. Thus, the stability and prosperity of the Commission state, the physical shadow must align with the metaphysical reality, Ma'at, in the etheric dimension. And it's interesting how this is, worded. The physical world must align with, you see what I'm saying, Ma'at. So the more that I don't know, the physical world, or the individuals who inhabit the physical world, or the direction of the physical world kind of does things that are kind of favorable to the blueprint, kind of how we've been talking about a good karma, so-called, or whatever the case may be. It mirrors in favorable, a feedback loop of favorable experiences for the society as a collective. Bad karma, or what have you, mirrors in a negative a series of negative outcomes, situations, conditions in their society, as it were. That's kind of their logic as it pertains to this. So they are giving credence to a feedback loop. You probably can't find that terminology in any of the literature. We're calling it a feedback loop, but as you can see, that's kind of how they're dealing with it, from something similar to, let's say, the notion of karma or what have you. Okay, so to ensure existential continuity, the state's physical reality was therefore an existential imperative driven by the need for perfect metaphysical alignment. Okay, horizontal reflection, the self and the other, right? So you got the vertical reflection and then the horizontal reflection. What he's calling the vertical reflection is the society, the overall society mirroring cosmic order. Okay, the horizontal reflection is going to be the self to other people, how the self treats other people. The reflection principle also operated horizontally, guiding interpersonal behavior. Ma'at dictated that Egyptians should exhibit honesty, kindness, and respect in daily interactions. This is the practical application of the principle that a person's treatment of a person's treatment of others is a direct mirror of their internal spiritual state. So they were admonished to treat people kindly and all this stuff like that, or whatever. Admonishing people to do so, or what have you. I don't know, uh, that would evoke a level of camaraderie within within society or within your fellow man and everything of that nature. Furthermore, the rigid organized societal structure where every class, the pharaoh to farmer, played a vital interdependent role, ensured resource distribution and collective prosperity. This structural interdependence inherently limited the chaos-prone individual ego in favor of the collective coherence. This systematic enforcement acted as a mechanism to minimize individual egoic deviation, preventing it from manifesting as localized or collective isfat. Localized or collective isfat. So they were trying to minimize the level of isfat as far as the individual, or chaos as far as the individual's field, or however you want to put it, as well as the collective of the society and everything like that. The legal system run by priests who served as spokespeople for Ma'at provided the immediate social feedback necessary to correct behavioral deviations before they could compromise the collective ethical integrity. So the idea that, there was a such thing as collective karma or what have you, that was kind of understood in these ancient times. Again, I'm not saying that Egypt was a idealized society at all times, but this was the general um, framework for their civilization. This is a lot of similar stuff you get when you read Plato's The Republic. When he talks about the Republic and his ideal society and everything like that, it's kind of modeled after a lot of this stuff. What we talking about here, some of this kind of concept what we talking about here. Um, so moving right along, the human apparatus, okay, soul components and energetic architecture, the bioetheric loop, the Cometian understanding of the human soul psyche, details a complex energetic architecture essential for the operation of the bioetheric feedback loop, the multi-component psyche. Okay, so from this perspective, from the Kemetic perspective, the soul or the individual is divided up into several sub layers. The cat, the ka, the ba, the chaybet. I mean, all kind of different terms and distinctions for the person. This is going to deal with three. The ka, vital essence. The ka is the spiritual double or life force created at birth and continuing to exist after death. It is associated with sustenance and vitality, requiring offerings of food, provision in the tomb to sustain its existence. The ka represents the fundamental stored energy or vital charge of the individual. Okay, so the ba, personality, mobility. The ba embodies the personality, character, and individuality of a person, often depicted as the human-headed bird that could travel freely between the worlds of the living and the dead. The ba represents the conscious interaction and mobility of the soul, the aspect responsible for receiving, interpreting, and generating external feedback. So the aspect responsible for receiving, interpreting, and generating external feedback. So the ba is embodied as a human-headed bird that could travel freely between the worlds of the living and the dead, right? The ba represents the conscious interaction and mobility of the soul, the aspect responsible for receiving, interpreting, and generating external feedback. So that's interesting. In the Egyptian cosmology, that would be what kind of deals with the feedback or the loop that we're talking about. The Ankh, transfigured spirit. The Ankh is the high level coherent output of a successful spiritual life. It is the transformed and glorified state attained after death, resulting from the successful reunion of the Ka and the Ba post judgment. Let's see here. Okay, so that's interesting. It's it's speaking of that as the output. So it's interesting, to contrast those different aspects of the person from an electrical perspective. The car and the bioetheric feedback. Excuse me, the car and the bioetheric flow. The bioetheric feedback loop hinges upon the interaction between the physical body, the cat, and the vital life force, the car. Yet esoteric science indicates that the physical body is an automaton that is energized and receives its impulse solely from the etheric body. That's kind of like what we were talking about previously when we talked about how the brain your thoughts and stuff and your personality and all that do not come from the brain, but the brain is like the radio that interprets the field. So it's something similar to that. This directly equates the Ka life force double with the etheric body, establishing the physical mechanism for the loop, right? All right, because it said let's see, the Ka is the spiritual double of the life force. So let's see here. The principle is straightforward. Health and disease are determined entirely by the uninhibited energy flow of the etheric body. When the flow is blocked, inhibited soul life manifests in the physical body as pain and illness originating from the emotional body and blocking the etheric channels. Okay. Let's see. Hmm. Uninhibited energy flow from the etheric body. Yeah, that's interesting. So a lot of the stuff that we hear when we talk about stuff like that, that might have sounded a little bit more fringe and new agey. After we fleshed out this whole thing about the Robert Becker's work and the human biofield and all that stuff like that, we can kind of freely talk about stuff like this without it sounding so crazy or whatever, because that if anybody questions any of that, what we just discussed, we did a whole video on the energy channels, meridians, and all that. Okay, so the bioetheric feedback loop is a continuous exchange between the physical body, which registers experience, the physical shadow, and the etheric body, which vitalizes and sustains the form. Vitalizes and sustains the form. When the physical body suffers from isfat, injustice, chaos, illness, dissonance, this perturbation sends negative informational feedback to the etheric field, inhibiting the pranic flow, the constant, highly structured ritual life of ancient Egypt, including regular offerings to the Ka and the pharaoh's elaborate daily ceremonies, functioned as a massive, continuous system of etheric channel clearance for the entire nation. So we did a whole other video. Um, let's see, it's in the Electric Soul series. We did a whole other video on the I think it's the architectonics of psycho-spiritual causality. We were talking about the marmer points and the meridians and everything like that. I think I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier and everything like that. Um, and how they cause sickness and how trauma and experiences that we have in life or whatever, how it causes sickness and everything like that, or how the sickness is a communication through the feedback loop for you to adjust some situation in your life. We talked about that previously, but what he's saying is that um, consistent religious practices. You see what I'm saying? And we talked about that on it's another video where I talk about religious sacrifices as input into the feedback loop. So just as we were speaking about that, this on a daily basis is saying they had daily rituals and ceremonies and things like that that functioned as daily inputs into the feedback loop to reinforce certain levels of channel clearance into the individual. So that's how we said a little bit earlier, their whole civilization and society was set up to kind of I don't know, facilitate this whole feedback loop, or a I don't know, a solid reflection of the blueprint, or a solid channel to the blueprint, however it may go. I know, we spoke about it from different perspectives or whatever. I think y'all get what I'm saying at this point, but these rituals serve to maintain the system's voltage and minimize internal resistance, ISFAT, ensuring continuous flow and systematic uh, vitality. So just the rituals that they did every day or whatever case may be, um, constantly cleared the channel of resistance and everything like that. So, and again, when we speak about religious rituals and things of that nature, from a religious mindset, thinking of it as a religion, and I'm not, throwing salt on anybody's religious beliefs. However, whatever level any of us is at, hey man, do what you got to do. Research and continue to walk your path or whatever case may be. But the religious rituals are input into the feedback loop. You see what I'm saying? So as they perform the rituals or whatever the case may be, the rituals may be used as well, like how we talked about on that video, to re-encode existing karma or rewrite existing karma. Let's say like the nation or something may have some sort of negative karma from something that they've done that exists within the feedback loop or whatever the case may be. The rituals or what have you, in effect, rewrite that. We talked about that on a previous video. So when we talk about religious rituals and sacrifices input into the feedback loop, so they rewrite the karma. So moving right along, Ma'at Heru, coherence and transmutation. The ultimate source of the individual bioetheric feedback loop is the attainment of the ox state. This is after death, which is reserved only for those deserving of Ma'at Heru, justified. This successful transformation requires the individual to have aligned their subjective self, Ba, and their vital force with the cosmic order, Ma'at. The process of becoming an Ak is understood as spiritual alchemy, a transformation into a glorified state. The strict adherence to Ma'atic social and ethical code provided the necessary social pressure and structure to force this process of individuation and spiritual transformation, preparing the soul for optimized function in the afterlife. See what I'm saying? So that's um, it's similar to when we spoke about Tibetan Buddhism and Bardo yoga and everything like that. They were preparing themselves to make the transition at death and everything like that, so they would get a sharper, clear transmission when they leave here with the least amount of resistance. You see what I'm saying? Similar to how I know Dan Winters talks about shaman and everything like that, going to specific places to die, so or to transition, so that there'll be less resistance. You see what I'm saying? Away from like metal structures and things like this. So with this, their whole society was preparing them, you see what I'm saying, with rituals and things like that or whatever, to have the least amount of resistance. We have a video about the left hand and the right hand path, or whatever catch me be. Their society, as far as this is concerned, was extremely right hand path heavy and everything like that, as far as the systematic and incremental rituals and everything like that, to diminish the resistance incrementally over time. You see what I mean? So um, okay, so let's see. Feedback mechanisms, synchronicity, and symptomology, right? So the Commission system used two primary modes of information transfer within the bioetheric feedback loop: constructive communication, which is synchronicity, and corrective communication, symptomology or disease. Okay, Jungian synchronicity as acausal social feedback. Okay, Jungian synchronicity, because remember we talked about Carl Jung, and we talked about Carl Jung is one of the people who actually talk about what's referred to as acausal connections, where we talk about there's a thing that we live through as far as the patterns of our life, where it's A plus B equals C. I'm hungry. I go to the store, buy a loaf of bread, some meat, come back home, make a sandwich, eat. I'm no longer hungry. A plus B equals C. Whereas there's another layer of reality that's more thematic in nature. You see what I'm saying? Similar to what Plato's talking about in Plato's theory of forms or whatever the case may be, but it's a more thematic aspect of reality, similar to what you get in a dream interpretation and all that, where you have things that happen acausally or whatever, what we would normally call coincidences. You think about somebody, they call you or whatever, it's no logical reasoning for that to happen or whatever. It just kind of happened and we write it off as a coincidence. All right. Let's see here. Carl Jung defines synchronicity as an acausal connecting principle involving meaningful coincidences that lack a discoverable causal connection. This principle suggests that the subjective inner state becomes entangled with objective external events. So let's say that again. The principle suggests that the subjective inner state, how you feel, becomes entangled with objective external events, linking internal psychological events to the outer world, linking internal psychological events, how you feel, how you what's going on with you to the outer world. In the context of ancient Egypt, synchronicity is the positive manifestation of Ma'at, when the collective internal state, the national ka, or the spirit of the country, or what have you, achieves sufficient coherence and maintains alignment. Positive synchronistic events occur: predictive Nile flood, successful military campaigns, cosmic alignment. This provides acausal, undeniable proof that the system is operating optimally, reinforcing adherence to Ma'at. So this is one of the reasons why, let's say, um, you know, ancient people would sacrifice something to particular deities or whatever case may be, and try to get certain rewards or whatever case may be, or they would be fixated on certain deities or what have you, because those deities, um, properly understood, were not just random idols, but were principles that they were trying to utilize to affect the feedback loop. You see what I'm saying? So what could be viewed as a religious thing might have actually been a form of technology, or kind of like primal software, so to speak, or whatever. It's not like they're just groveling in front of idols. It was a method behind their madness or whatever. Probably knowledge of this may have been lost in a far gone era or what have you. But in essence, this is really what they're doing. The context of ancient Egypt, synchronicity is the positive manifestation of Ma'at. I think we talked about that. Okay. This provides a causal undeniable proof that the system is operating optimally, reinforcing adherence to Ma'at. Conversely, unexpected external disasters or uncanny failures, which defy standard causal explanations, signal a profound failure of Ma'at within the collective psyche, right? So if the collective psyche is not geared toward the laws of Ma'at or whatever the case may be, bad things happen to them or what have you. Things that would reflect their internal disorder. You see what I'm saying? Their internal calamity or imbalance as a group of people. You see what I'm saying? So this ties into the whole notion of, let's say, collective karma or what have you. You see what I'm saying? The governmental structure, particularly the pharaoh and the priesthood, required this acausal feedback to determine whether the superficial order and reflected true inner coherence, necessitating immediate ritualistic or structural recalibration when negative synchronicity manifested. Okay, so the ritualistic or structural recalibration, like how we said earlier in the same video, is them making sacrifices, because when they made sacrifices or what have you, based on this thought process, you see what I'm saying? I ain't telling you if that ain't what you got going on. I ain't telling you to make no sacrifices. This is a case study and a thought experiment that we doing. So, just got to give you the disclaimer, because somebody gonna go out there and wild out. So, and say brother so I told him to sacrifice the cat or something like that. I don't know, but no. I'll just aside. The recalibration of the energy. What we talking about is them making sacrifices to kind of like re-encode the pattern. You see what I'm saying? The sacrifice kind of on an energetic level, based on the information that we kind of been getting from this thought experiment, the sacrifice, the release of a certain quality of energy will um, rewrite an existing pattern, or could have the potential to rewrite an existing pattern. So that's the reason why they sacrifice, or whatever case may be, or that's the recalibration, ritualistic structural recalibration, maybe changing, building a new temple or something like that, or whatever, to adjust the energy or whatever case may be. So what they're doing ritualistically, as far as the priesthood is concerned, they're adjusting the energy or whatever case may be. When they do rituals, rites, building something, doing things like that or whatever case may be, it's like they're calibrating an instrument or a machine. They're tuning a machine or something. It seems like Dolores Cannon and somatic systematic message delivery. Dolores Cannon's work viewed disease as information and evolutionary catalyst. These energies were allowed to enter the physical field, transform into physical reality. Applying this model systematically, ISFAT, chaos, disorder, is the direct societal disease, a large-scale somatic manifestation of collective incoherence, right? The societal pathology arises when the collective consciousness accepts negative and fear-based information, blocking the national energy flow. Just as individual illness stems from inhibited soul life and blocked etheric channels, societal illness such as famine, plague, or war or civil war in our current civilization, drug addiction, homelessness, all that stuff like that. And interestingly enough, you know, this piece is just going to be a stepping stone for another piece that we're going to do. This piece is just a stepping stone. We're kind of laying down kind of like the mindset of Egyptian civilization, and this is going to be used as kind of like a measuring stick to measure our own civilization. Now, we can't compare, our current level of technology or what have you, with the Egyptian level of technology or what have you for various different reasons or what have you. Even if we're under the mindset that they had advanced technology of some sort, we have no way of gauging the actual level of their technology. So, we kind of have to deal with it a certain kind of way, but we can gauge the level of coherence as it pertains to Ma'at or Isfat, that whole metric and everything like that as it pertains to society. So what we're seeing here in this little thought experiment is that the bioetheric feedback loop not only can be applied to an individual, it can also be applied to a society, a country, a group, a ethnic group, a tribe, anything, a group of people and everything like that, because there is a such thing as collective karma, and that is also a part of the feedback loop or what have you. So let's keep going with this. The societal pathology arises when the collective consciousness accepts negative fear-based information. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, so let's see, societal illnesses such as famine, plague, or civil war manifest when the collective ka is starved or the system's etheric channels are blocked by widespread deviation from Ma'at. These systematic symptoms are the loud, unavoidable message delivered via the bioetheric feedback loop, forcing the entire Commission system to evolve or collapse. To evolve or collapse, they got to change something to mediate the energy, like pressure mediation, like what we've been talking about, to mediate the energy, because that's basically what the priests are doing. They're making calibrations to the energy. They're adjusting the energy, like pressure mediation, like how Brother Sar been talking about. So consequently, any widespread disaster functions as an immediate diagnostic report via the bioetheric feedback loop. Any widespread disaster, because the way they view things is everything reflects. So if it's some sort of widespread disaster or something like that, it reflects something that's some other underlying theme or principle that's not being met in society or whatever. So it turns into a diagnostic thing. Similar to what we telling you, if you get sick or something like that or whatever, it's more than just a physical sickness or whatever. It's some situation in your life that probably corresponds to. So consequently, any widespread disaster functions as an immediate diagnostic report via the bioetheric feedback loop, requiring the pharaoh, the ultimate diagnostician, to engage the corrective ritual or legislative action designed as systematic etheric healing, right? All right, because the pharaoh is also the high priest. So the electrical interpretation, Kemet as a resonant circuit. So the electrical interpretation, Kemet as a resonant circuit. So similar to how, I know people gonna be like, man, ain't no electricity. Similar to how we talked about geobiology, similar to how we talked about feng shui and Vastu Shastra. These people are of a similar mindset because there's almost a common metaphysics. You see some different words for different things, but it's a common metaphysics. They have a similar metaphysics across the ancient world. So to explain the Commission's spiritual structure electrically is to understand the society as a massive, long-term engineering project designed to maintain a stable direct current flow against the forces of entropy, right? So similar to how you have the mythos of the solar boat array, and all the deities fighting off the forces of darkness, and Satuk fighting off Apapis and everything like that, to defend the race so Ray can rise the next day and everything like that. It's a similar mindset. viewing it as a resonant circuit or whatever, staving off resistance and everything like that. And like I said, we're gonna get into a video about how the United States, how our current modern civilization. I use the United States in the case study that we're gonna do, but how do we stack up against what Kemet has going on, or what's our level of adherence or coherence as it pertains to this based on the problems that we have in our civilization now, whatever case may be. So we're going to get into that. We also going to get into some of that Machiavelli, the Prince, not Tupac, talking about Machiavelli, the Prince, and get into some of that. So that's going to be kind of like a similar flavor to your 48 laws of power, but we're going to kind of filter it through the feedback loop and kind of see what we get. Okay, but moving right along. Energy and polarity in spiritual systems. The metaphysical field underlying Commission cosmology is the ether or prana, right? But we know that the ether and prana are two different things, but for the sake of this, AI, which acts as a continuous conducting medium for the entire system. The fundamental operational polarity of the system is defined by Ma'at, order, coherence, DC flow, and Isfat, chaos, resistance, entropy. Ma'at represents the pursuit of stable, undirectional energy flow. The remarkable duration and uniformity of Commission civilization lasting over 3,000 years. I mean, we know that, that's a conservative time frame, but, we'll go with it for the sake of this conversation. Are evidence of the successful maintenance of the systematic DC coherence, the pharaoh's divine authority and constant ritual function as the system voltage, the potential difference required to drive the energy flow and uphold my, right? So he was able to regulate and do different things to regulate the energy or whatever case may be. Conversely, Ishvat acts as a resistance within the circuit, impeding the flow of life energy. The entire apparatus of Commission ethics, law, ethics, and ritual was dedicated to minimizing the internal resistance, ensuring maximum power transmission, collective spiritual and material prosperity. Okay, minimizing resistance. So we're looking at their society, their whole society, as an electrical resonator. So the soul component as energetic functions. This component of the soul can be mapped to electrical functions within the circuit. The ka, or the spirit, as capacitor or battery. The ka is the system's the ka is the system's capacity for life force. It functions as a capacitor or battery that must be constantly charged and maintained via offerings, rituals to prevent the circuit from opening. So this would be what they're leaving food and stuff for in the afterlife, personal items and everything like that. The ba as traveling current. The ba, personality, is the current itself, the mobile impulse capable of traveling. The spiritual goal of Ma'at Keru is to rectify the chaotic, egoic nature of the unjustified ba, analogous to transforming alternating current fluctuation into a stable, direct current component that can integrate harmoniously with as coherent output. The is the fully integrated and rectified DC output of the individual system. The effective spirit. It represents energy optimized for eternal function and minimal resistance. Okay, so that whole process they're talking about, again, that's similar to what we were talking about. If you go back into the video where we were talking about Bardo states and all that, I think that's the Electric Soul Volume 2. We were kind of talking about that. It's a similar thing with Bardo Yoga, how they're preparing for their transition and everything like that. This what they talking about as far as the Egyptian thing. It's a longer process and it's not compartmentalized like them just going to church and doing it, which that's a thing, going to the temple or whatever case may be. You know what I'm saying? Once you live your normal life and then in your time you set aside time for your spiritual pursuits, maybe church, the mosque, whatever you got going on. In this situation, their whole society more so facilitated their spiritual journey, as it were. Okay, so the architecture, catastrophe, and circuit shutdown. The sacred architecture, particularly the Temple of Man, functioned as a resonator, an amplifier for the national energy field. The temple functioned as a resonator and amplifier for the national energy field. Constructed using sacred geometry, these temples were designed to align the localized terrestrial energy with stable cosmic frequencies of Ma'at. Now, I would assume that worked in a couple of ways. It would provide something, a voltage boost for the individual person going to and studying in the temple and everything like that, as well as, a lot of temples were put on ley lines and everything like that, as well as what we talked about with geobiology, how people chanting and praying or whatever, that has an effect on the field of that particular place. So that's another thing. The ultimate threat to this engineered system was articulated in the Commission belief that at the end of time, the creator Atum would destroy everything, returning the world to the primordial state of inert nun. In electrical terms, this is catastrophic circuit shutdown. If ISFAT, resistance entropy, achieves dominance over Ma'at DC flow, the collective etheric field experiences maximal incoherence, leading to a systematic collapse back to zero potential. Okay, it's a similar thing when they talk about the solar boat array. If they can't defend the solar boat array or whatever case may be, the sun won't come up again. So it's a similar idea. The Commission structure was thus a massive, generations-long effort in high-level energetic engineering to support this ultimate entropy, to prevent this ultimate entropy. So synthesis and supporting details. The unified perspective demonstrates that the Commission's societal structure was not mere political hierarchy, but a complex cybernetic system health, social ethics, and physical prosperity were inextricably linked via quantifiable energetic laws. So all of that, the prosperity of the people, the mental health of the people, and everything like that, that reflected how the country was adhering to the laws of Ma'at. And like how we talked about in another case study or whatever, the level of exploitation of people, let's say hypothetically, to get that wealth or whatever, that creates, what's viewed in this as like a karmic debt or whatever case may be. And a lot of times, you'll have civilizations that did sacrifices to offset that or whatever case may be. But as we can see, as it pertains to a country or a society or a tribe and everything like that, there are various different factors that kind of, I don't know, make the energy shift and kind of affect these acausal factors from this perspective. So let's see here. So we're gonna have the Egyptian concept. Ma'at would be order and truth from the Egyptian perspective. The metaphysical electrical role, universal coherence, governing principle. All right. Functioning the bioetheric feedback loop provides a stable baseline, ground state for energy transfer, dictates system ethics, reflection, psychological analog, the archetype of wholeness. All right. The objective criteria for self-judgment. All right. The pharaoh, the system regulator, voltage controller. That's where he would be in the system. Acts as the conduit, the transformer between divine energy, similar to what we talked about in the electric soul. He would be similar to what the DNA would be. You see what I'm saying? The antenna. You see what I'm saying? But acts as the conduit, transformer between divine energy and the terrestrial plane, ensures institutional coherence. Make sure that the priesthood and everything is functioning as it should to ensure that the laws of Ma'at are followed. The conscious ego. He's the ego of the nation. You see what I'm saying? Aligned with the collective unconscious, the self. All right. Let's see here. Ka, life force, vital energy, etheric capacitor, stores and transmits life force, requires consistent sustenance to maintain field integrity. The personal unconscious, the template upon which physical health is structured. That's the Ka. The Ba, personality, traveling impulse, messenger. And like we're trying to make these correlations as clean as possible and everything like that. Like I said, this is more of a thought experiment than anything. We're just making a contrast so we can see if we can get some additional nuances out of this. So traveling impulse manager, Okay, that's the ba. Personality allows subjective interaction between the physical and spiritual realms. Mechanism for sensing synchronicity. So that's what facilitates the feedback loop, is what it's saying. The ego in motion, the mechanism uh, perceiving a causal connection, right? Okay, that's the personality. And it's interesting because, like we said on previous videos, the ego is kind of like the buffer. The ego is kind of like the filter or the buffer between that kind of guards the subject object divide. So transfigured spirit, ascended coherent output, the achieved state of optimized DC energy flow, effective spirit, the successful completion of the the individual loop, self actualization, individuation, the integration of conscious and unconscious material, right? So this is the finished product as far as the whole process or whatever that the person attains once they pass on, the the transfigured spirit. Okay, and then lastly, last term that we have is ISFAT, chaos, system resistance, entropy. The force inhibiting energy flow leads to societal and individual decay. Collective shadow is the collective shadow of the group, the collective shadow, the unresolved unconscious material, the source of informative catalyst, um, requiring system recalibration. All right, let me see. Okay. Okay, synchronicity from Young. A causal connection, inner or outer alignment, successful rule, prediction, predictable now, floods, cosmic alignment, positive feedback, confirmation that the collective car is coherent, reinforced, adherent to let's see here. Weighing of the heart, post-mortem rectification, the ultimate check of individual coherence against the feather of truth, quality control, determines whether the individual spiritual output, can be integrated into the cosmic system or erased, whether the energy, the refined energy after this incarnation can be integrated into the cosmic system or it must be erased. Similar to what we were talking about, getting fired. It's a similar thing. The reflection principle, etheric causality, shadow to real. The prosperity of the state is the measure of the internal soul's coherence. So the state of each individual in the society that creates the collective or whatever case may be, contributes to the shadow of that society or the ills of that society or whatever case may be. Verification ensures the physical structure of society accurately reflects the etheric ideal. Okay, so bioetheric blockage, famine, plague, political upheaval, war, all the negative stuff, as symptomology. Negative feedback. This is the negative feedback that comes out of society. Negative feedback, unavoidable message requiring structural change, forces system recalibration and ethical ritual correction. Okay, so that's kind of, just kind of touching on that, how this can be applied to a society and a civilization, and kind of going forward. Um, this is going to kind of be our I don't know, our control or whatever, what case may be in some of our experiments or whatever. This is going to be like the idealized society, so-called, and we know Egypt wasn't perfect in throughout its entire history or what have you, but at the same time, the overall intention and the overall setup of how their society was, we're gonna when we explore other countries or places or whatever case may be, tribes, society, civilizations, we're gonna kind of model it off of this or whatever case may be as a measuring stick. So the analysis demonstrates that ancient Egypt's societal structure, as interpreted by the Symbolist school, represents a sophisticated, functional blueprint for conscious civilization. It operated as a closed-loop system where physical reality was the inevitable reflection of spiritual coherence. Physical reality was the inevitable reflection of spiritual coherence. I think we got enough videos about that. We kind of go back and kind of view that. Okay, so the core methodology was the maintenance of the bioetheric feedback loop, ensuring that spiritual vitality, ka, etheric flow, was consistently supported by ethical compliance to my, right? ethical compliance to my. So this is not just an Egyptian thing. This exists in other societies as well. It's just kind of clean in the Egyptian concept. We may see it in other languages or whatever, other terminology, other cultural frameworks and stuff like that, said in a different way. But we still see this same consistent pattern of um, I don't know, maintaining the continuity of a society by having certain actions or giving certain sacrifices. It's all going back to this energetic framework, whether it one way or another. So the societal contract was, in essence, an exercise in high level societal contract, right? Was in essence an exercise in high level electrical engineering of consciousness. So basically, our social contract here in America, where the UK, wherever you at, India, wherever you at, is in essence an exercise in high level electrical engineering of consciousness. You see what I'm saying? Because you're a product of your environment. So we're also a product of the social conditions of our environment, as we can see here. Ma'at provided, and we're going to examine that in another video. Ma'at provided the operational protocol necessary to minimize systematic resistance, ISFAT, thereby securing a stable DC flow capable of sustaining the massive national energetic structure. Individual ethical actions was not merely moral philosophy, but a critical functional contribution to the national power grid, right? Ensuring the system avoided the catastrophic circuit shutdown symbolized by the return to none. You see what I'm saying? Dissolution, as it were. This ancient model offers a profound perspective on sustainability and governance. Yes, it does. Material prosperity and political stability are not achievable through physical means alone, because we're in this model. We are calculating a causal conditions, as well as they were apparently calculating a causal conditions. A lot of people talk about, the ancestors and things that they subscribe to, and they'll pick and choose things that they like and don't like, or whatever case may be. Like, their whole society is based on astrology, but a person will tell me that astrology is pseudo. You can't, the ancestors can't be everything that you say they are. And if astrology is pseudo and they base their whole society on this, it had to have some sort of function. So it's some sort of missing link or whatever case may be. This what we talking about. This is kind of like a piece of the missing link, the feedback loop, the reflective aspect of their society that they acknowledged or whatever case may be. And even in modern times, we can still, whether you subscribe to this wholeheartedly, the bar and the car and all that, you see what I'm saying? Or, even the Egyptian deities or whatever case may be, even beyond that whole idea or whatever, I'm not trying to convert you to or away from nothing, as I always say, but just to take an inventory of some of the nuances we get from this and show how the character and the principles and the moral fabric of the society and of the people in the society contribute to the overall success or failure or longevity of that society. I think we can all kind of bear witness to that, whether you subscribe to the Egyptian deities or not. I think we can all bear witness to the principle of balance, or the notion of balance at work and everything like that in a society, in an ordered society. So this ancient model offers a profound perspective on sustainability and governance. Okay, so the success of Kemet lay in its ability to enforce the reflection principle, guaranteeing that the prosperity of the state precisely mirrored the coherence of the collective soul. So, yeah. So just kind of, I don't know, getting into that, because I know a lot of people often wonder why we fixate on Egypt a lot. Um, because I cannot really say it's a repository of information. Not saying that it's the most perfect society or the first. As we can see, we dealing with cycles of time, so we don't even really deal with the notion of this was first and that was first, because everything's going in a circle. So first will only mean first in a cycle at best. So we're not dealing with Egypt like that or whatever case may be, but it's a decent enough snapshot with enough material that's preserved for us to observe it and kind of see how they um ran their society, and why they um had a relative a measure of relative success overall in their society. Based on some of our other conversations, we kind of see some of the remnants or where some of the different symbolism and concepts of their society come from or whatever. But we just kind of wanted to flesh this out on the energetic side, so we can kind of see how that works. You see what I'm saying? But that's pretty much what I had today. Like I said, we're gonna have some other pieces um, going into the bioetheric feedback loop, kind of expanding it out from the individual, maybe speaking about, you know, groups of people and how the feedback loop manifests or in their different societies. Like what you've been hearing, like and subscribe. I know we kind of drug on a little bit, kind of a little long on this one, but I hope you got a lot out of it. Like I say, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Peace to the gods, man. Check out our next one.